It's live now.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you very much. So if we can, what we'll do is we'll call to order this Finance Committee meeting for Wednesday, October 28th, 2020 at 5:38 p.m. I'm going to do a roll call. Trustee House is present, Trustee Brown,
Present.
and Trustee Steve.
Present.
And so we have all three members here. Quorum is met. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then I'll lead us in prayer. Heavenly Father, just thank you for overseeing us to this day. We ask that you guide our minds, hearts, and spirits to do the right thing for the Village of Dalton in this Finance Committee meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, we're going to have our old business is our normal monthly items. I think we have a few things on new business that may require a little bit more attention. So I'm going to go a little bit faster through the old business. I will ask Chris if you can elaborate on things that we may want to highlight or make sure that the Finance Committee, the residents, and the rest of the board is aware of. But as it relates to our monthly financial reports, I'm going to speak about our general fund as we always do in the water fund. I'm not going to pause the way we do for people to catch up. The reports are online. I will identify the pages that we're receiving the data from. So in our general fund, which is on the printed version, page 15, the electronic version, page 18, would show that for the month we had a deficit of $183,505. And year-to-date surplus, $465,234 year-to-date. That is in our general fund. The water fund, which is on page 18 on the printed version, page 21 electronically, had a monthly surplus, $400,056.56. And a year-to-date surplus, $374,312.73. So both the general fund and the water fund year-to-date, or fiscal year-to-date, both have surpluses, but I'll ask Chris if you can expand on that in terms of how we looking compared to budget and any areas that the board or the Finance Committee should be concerned with.
So the board just recently, as of the last payroll, which is not reflected in these financials, issued union raises for 3 of its 5 unions. So those raises are not reflected in this payroll or in these financials. And most of those union raises, they were all effective as of May 1st, 2020. So payroll for the village as a whole for 3 of its unions is going to increase, eliminating some of your surpluses in both the water fund and in the general fund. Some of those raises we had known about, so we anticipated when we were preparing the budget. Some of the other raises, we did not know the status of the negotiations or that they were actually in negotiations, so we could not plan for them, so they're not being reflected within the budget. So that's going to decrease some of the surpluses that we budgeted for in the general fund.
Okay. Any questions, board members?
No, I don't know.
I have none.
Okay.
I do want to mention one other item.
Yes, sir.
The county did defer the payment of real estate taxes, which is why we are about 1.2 million below prior year in collection of real estate taxes, which as we are getting closer to our debt service, that will put financial constraints on village operations because we may not have a sufficient cash flow at the time of the payment. So we may have to borrow from the general fund to make our debt service payment in December.
Okay. Any communication on the deferment status in terms of, I know people have gotten extensions on their tax bills, but just your best guess, or are we even afraid to guess at this point what kind of timeline we may start receiving those funds?
I'm expecting, because we did receive some funds in October, so I'm hoping that in October, November, we're going to see a large installment of taxes come in. But as a forewarning, that's a hope. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Okay. I think that's a great segue to the next order of business, which is the status of our bond payment. So it sounds like we are on track for the bond payment. However, we may need to borrow some from the general fund. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, that's true. That's correct.
Okay. And then the Homewood disposable bond, I know we normally take that out in December of every year. Am I correct?
Yeah, around that time sounds about right.
Okay. I'm going to mention this. We talked about it at our last finance committee meeting, but I'll bring it up again this meeting as well as during the finance committee report. The intention, or in years past, we've used the bond for Homewood disposal of $1.4 million to cover the cost of our garbage pickup. The intention this year was to try to decrease that from 1.4 to around 1.2 when we went through the budgeting process. Given the challenges with revenue and COVID, we did budget again for the same $1.4 million. And I bring that up because when we come in December, that will be what the ask is. But we want to make sure that everybody's aware that we budgeted for that amount, why we did, and have this forum as well as the next meeting for anybody to express concerns and discuss other ways that we may move forward if there's anybody that has any ideas on how we can reduce that. But I'll leave that. Any comments, board or anybody else on that?
No comment and no question, but I know that's been a goal to reduce that this year, but you're saying that as of right now, we're not going to be able to reduce that bond. So that'll be a goal for next year to reduce that bond.
Correct.
Okay. That's a good goal to have.
Okay. So I think we're going to move right along to the next one in terms of status of our water bill payments. I know we have two items with that. One is, of course, we just want to make sure that our ongoing payments to the city of Chicago are current, and there's a transfer coming up in new business. So I think we'll talk about that under the new business section, which would be the annual payments to the city of Chicago per our settlement. So just quickly, Chris, are we on track with are we still current with water bill payments for our monthly obligation?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And then we want to talk about the uncollected balance of water bills from the community. We generally average about $4 million of uncollected water bills. The report had an error on it. I think there was a mistype, so we have to get that report corrected. But Chris, do you have any statements? We anticipate the amount is still around $4 million. We stayed pretty consistent. However, while we're getting the errors fixed within the Locust system, we do not have an accurate report on that at this time.
Yes, there was an error in the system that occurred in September that until we can adjust it within the system, it will reflect that you guys basically received $2 million, which never really happened. It's something we have to fix within the system before your report will be properly reporting.
Okay. Would you guess that'll be fixed by the next finance committee meeting?
That's my hope.
Okay. Speaking of next finance committee meeting, I'll go a little off schedule here. I just want to ask Trustee Steve and Trustee Brown. Our normal schedule for finance committee meetings is the last Wednesday of each month, January through October. November, December, we do not generally have a finance committee meeting, but given all of the concerns with COVID, revenue, and everything, I wanted to see if you would be open to having a finance committee meeting the first Wednesday of December to kind of span those 2 months, and we'll get back to normal schedule in January if that would fit your schedules.
Okay, so you say no meeting in November and the next one in December?
The first Wednesday in December will be the meeting, and then the following meeting will be the final Wednesday in January, and we'll go back to the normal schedule.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's fine.
I'm good with that.
Thank you for your cooperation. And then the last item under old business is just a follow-up item on the implementation of our time clock system. Chris, can you kind of see if we have
So Liz and I had a conference call with Paychex to go over the, I don't want to say demo, but the current status of what they've created. They have a few things that they have to change to make sure it agrees with all of our union contracts. And then we should, my hope is that we'll be soon be in the implementation testing phase.
Okay. Any questions, committee?
One question. So when do you think we'll be able to do the test run?
My hope is that the first payroll of December, we would do we'll run the system, but we'll process payroll like we normally do. And then hopefully the second payroll of December, we are just running it through time and attendance.
Okay.
That's my hope. Once
Okay.
I see what happens, then we'll know more.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
So hopefully by the new year, we should be up and running with the new time card system.
That's my hope.
Okay. And when are we sending something out to the employees to let them know that the beginning of the year, this will be implemented?
Once we have set dates as to when we're going to start the actual, when the system is actually fully created and we make sure it works with all of the different union contracts.
Okay, so we're probably looking at sometime in January, correct?
Yeah, first in January, around that time, or a little earlier.
Okay, that'll be good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. If we're concluding that item, we're going into new business. We have two items that I'm going to ask Chris to cover, which are requests for transfers to be put on. Chris, were you looking for these to be put on our next meeting, or kind of outline what we're looking to do? And then I think our last point, Administrator Scott has a lot of good news for us. So I think we're going to finish with a bang.
So I'm hoping to have these on next Monday's meeting for approval, assuming agreement amongst the board. The first one is what the board normally does is the village collects real estate taxes for its annual payment to Chicago, but proper accounting requires me to then do a board authorized transfer of an accounting transfer of those monies into the water fund to make the payment. So we do segregate the monies currently, but I need board action to permanently transfer as an accounting entry those money from the general fund to the water fund. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. You say this is what happens once a year, every year.
Correct.
Okay. The initial motion. Can you give the dollar amount of the transfer, Chris? I think we the initial one that we posted did not have the amount in there, but we're going to do a revised one for the board meeting. But what was the dollar amount?
The maximum that the motion will be at the high end will be 1,368,000. That's the highest it can go.
And she said that's money set aside, right? From when I remember a few years ago when they raised the taxes to actually pay the water, but that money's already set aside. Am I correct?
Yes, it's separate. It's segregatedly accounted for, but proper accounting requires me to record it in the general fund, and then I have to transfer it to the water fund. So that's all this entry does, is just authorizes me to transfer the cash from the general fund to the water fund, and then we pay the bill out of the water fund.
Okay.
Okay. And one other question: these items for the next board meeting, have you already communicated those to Clerk Dugan? Because I know we may have missed. Well, yesterday would have been our deadline to get it on Monday's agenda. But I know I did not submit that request because if not, it may have to go into the following voting meeting.
I will check with her to make sure that they're on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll follow up with the Madam Clerk.
Okay, and then we'll go into any other questions on that item. Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the second transfer request.
Okay, so this one, at the beginning of the fiscal year, the board created special revenue funds for its forfeiture and foreign fire tax accounts. But in previous fiscal years, those monies were recorded in the general fund. So I need an authorization from the board to permanently transfer these segregated separate cash accounts into each of the separate special revenue funds. So it's just moving the cash that's being recorded and reported in the general fund to being reported into each special revenue fund to relate to those cash accounts.
Was this a recommended item on our last audit to be done as well?
It's something that that auditors do like to see, that your special revenues are separate from your general revenues.
Okay. Any questions from the board? All right, quick and easy. I like it. So
just for clarity, the board is okay, the finance committee is okay with moving this to the general meeting?
I am okay with that. Trustee Brown, you okay?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Trustee Steve?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that will come from the finance committee recommendation. And last but definitely not least, Administrator Scott, we did include in the packet there was it was sent a little bit earlier today, and it was also uploaded online with the upgrade of our village software that can have a great impact to benefit not only the employees, the residents of the community. Liz, if you don't mind, can you kind of talk about the proposal, all the work that you guys put into it? Or did you want to start with the great news about the CARES Act?
Oh, yeah. So I wanted to just add that I submitted the CARES Act yesterday. That was a big deal because I've been losing a lot of sleep. This is a big deal for the community. It's a lot of money. It's over $747,000. So I did submit that yesterday. I have gotten a response from the county. They're asking for some additional information, which is good. So I am going to submit the additional information, but we did turn it in. So I'm waiting to hear back the final say on if we're going to get the money or not, but I'm very confident that we will get the money. So good stuff on that. The second thing is, so we interviewed several companies for new software for our water department. Not just for our water department, but basically it will interact with the various departments, whether it's licensing, permits, housing, for final water bills, for closings on properties. And this is going to be a great asset for us because instead of having to, there's a disconnect sometimes with communication in the various departments. Everything will be able to be viewed by the different departments. So you can see if they've actually had a final water bill before you issue a transfer stamp. You can look and see if their permits are all up to par. So it's a great tool, and it's a great tool also for us to be able to communicate with paychecks for payroll. So there's a lot of different things that this software can do, a lot more than the current software that we have. This also came recommended. Thornton Township uses them. Also Thornton uses them. Country Club Hills. I think Frankfort, there were several municipalities, but I think I had listed 3 in the email that I sent to the trustees. And if you look through the software, Chris can go in more detail because when I went over it with him, I wanted to make sure that it's compatible with the accounting and everything that we do. So that we're on point with our auditors and whatnot. So if you go through the checklist that I incorporated in the emails, you'll see a lot of the items, and they consider those items a la carte. So you specifically ask for the different applications that you need that would work depending on your municipality. So Chris, do you want to go into some detail about the accounts payable and on your side?
So one of the nice things regarding the AP system, the accounts payable system, is instead of it all falling on finance to do the data input and then the review and that, what we can do is each department can review their invoices, input them into the system, follow our procedures of approval, and then they will come to, based on the village's policy, purchase policy, to the appropriate levels for approval, and then create the packet that the board usually sees, the warrant list for their approval. So instead of it all being one person has to do all of the data input, we can have each department manage their own invoices, manage their own vendors. So that way, if when a vendor has an inquiry, instead of it all coming to one department, each department can follow up as to which invoices are outstanding, where are these invoices in the process, the data inputting. It also decrease some of the burden on finance and the time on finance as in inputting invoices and those types of things. So decreasing my time in processing, billing, and creating the warrant list and all those types of items.
Right. And I wanted to add, it also will do things like make the transition from year to year for our stickers, for our vehicle stickers. So this will store all of this information. So we will know if they filled out a sticker last year, the numbers, everything will be in sync, including animal licenses, planning and zoning, code enforcement with tickets, everything. So this is a game changer for us. Also, if you look at the pricing, this money is eligible. Chris, am I correct? This will come out of the capital improvement funds, correct? So this will not come out of our general funds, which will help us and ease the burden of us having to, absorb the cost of this software. And we are not going to be locked into any type of 5-year, 2-year. If we aren't happy with the software, we don't have to keep it. And the software is an investment. It's about $100,000. It's 90-some thousand dollars. And I have the details on the last page of the investment summary that I sent to everyone, to this board. But it is a good investment. It's not coming out of our general fund. It's capital improvement money, which can only be utilized for things like this. So I think it's a good investment for us. Also, it can print out and generate water bills. It can generate shutoff lists. We can actually, we also have the capability to exempt people, for example, who have filed Chapter 13. So this hopefully will make things a lot more efficient for us. The system that we have, not to bash them, but it's not really a system that works for us and the type of programs that we need. And the communication isn't there with the various departments, as well as I think it'll make it more efficient. And I think it's more user-friendly than the software that we have now. The software we have now is actually pretty complicated. I've recently had more experience in the water department due to the absences and whatnot. And it is, you really do have to be well-trained in Locus. So I think this will be more efficient. It's more user-friendly. And it'll help us to communicate within the various departments.
So Administrator Scott, it will cut down on some of the issues that we're experiencing in the water department, correct?
Yes, not just the water department, but just with all of the other departments, with having a paper trail and just the efficiency.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to say also, I guess commend Administrator Scott for doing this, because that's been being talked about, having a software program that communicates with all the department heads. So that's a big improvement for the village. So
yes, and the money that's going to be saved, that sorry, Chris, that we won't be spending with Casperate Group on some of these payroll department issues. It will streamline, and I think it's going to save us a lot of money in the long run. And like I said, Oak Forest uses them, Thornton Township, Thornton, Homewood, and Homewood specifically said they were using another system. I don't want to name that system, but we did look into that system as well. But they said they had outgrown the system, and they said they're liking this software very much. And the programs they use are for payroll, water billing, HR, general ledger. So they use it for to run their village, and they're very happy with it.
Good stuff.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions, but I want to leave it for the committee members first before no other question? All right. So this one is this a replacement for the water department system or the accounting software? Which system would we be replacing with it?
So this is going to work in conjunction with Paychex. It is compatible. A lot of the other municipalities that use this, they still also use Paychex. So we will be using this in conjunction with Paychex. This will replace the current software that we are using for some of our invoicing and things of that nature on the accounting side. Am I correct, Chris, in saying that?
Yes, this will replace our current accounting software for both the utility side and for the billing side.
Yes.
And I know that you mentioned the things with the water department. Will the meter readers also, will their readings also be uploaded into this system as well, or will that still have to be a separate function?
So for the yellow cards, those still have to be manually entered, but it is compatible with us using the systems we use now as far as the wands and uploading. All of that is still compatible.
Okay.
And one of the things that we're under the utility system is if you need
we
work orders and those types of things, the system will self-generate when you have a new meter you have to install or those types of things. The system will generate those types of work orders.
And I almost forgot, Chris, the big one that you thank you for reminding me. This will make the bills available online to residents. That's a big plus. I don't know how I forgot that. Chris just texted me that. I'm going to give you some props, Chris, because and that was a big deal for us. I forgot that because we actually interviewed this company and spoke with them a few times beginning last year. When I first came back, but we had just put this on the back burner and a lot of things obviously came up with COVID. So it wasn't a good time when we were short on employees to try to, bring on a new software and just everything going on with the pandemic. But a huge plus is now the residents with this software, they will actually be able to go online and view their account. And we get a lot of suggestions, complaints about that. That residents aren't able to view their account, and you will actually be able to view your account online with this. Thanks, Chris.
Can you talk about implementation and then also record retention for previous our previous records? How will those be stored or maintained in the event that some of the implementation there are errors or we have to do further research to resolve a resident issue?
So a lot of this stuff, and Chris, jump in if I say something that's wrong or if you have something that you also want to add on to it, another layer. But from what I remember, we are actually able to transfer the existing information that we have now. It will all be transferred, and that is also included in this price. So that's a big deal too, because that's a lot of information. Okay. So it will be able to be transferred. They're going to have to pull the information they already have out of the software system we have now. And if anything else additional needs to be added, we can also add it at that time.
Okay. So they've already talked about how for the transfer processes, they'll work into, I guess, stages is the best way to phrase it. We decide how many years of information we want to carry over. So we can go back however many years we would like as backup data, I guess is the best term.
Okay. And Liz, were you looking at this one as well for Monday's meeting or?
Yes, I am. I'm looking, I wanted to bring this before the committee first and go through the proper chain, but I would like to put this on the next board meeting for a vote because this is going to take a lot of time to do this. And we're not looking until probably an April, May startup.
April or May. Oh, wow.
Yes.
So
that'll be when it'll be completely, everything will be done. All of the data will be entered. And you have to think this is like years and years of data from the village. But yeah, we're looking at an April, May when it'll be completed.
Okay. Now, and on this one, I would say, of course, well, if you've reached out, have you talked to Clerk Dugan as well, similar to what I was saying with Chris? Because if it hadn't been submitted to her by yesterday, in most cases, we're not able to get it on the agenda.
Yes, and I did ask her to be on standby that if the board did want to move forward. And so she has this on standby that I already told her this may be on the next meeting, depending on whether or not, what direction the board wanted to take. So she is aware.
All right. And for something this big too, I would also kind of recommend, I'll reach out to them as well, but the two trustees that are not on the meeting, I'm sure they would want to have more of a heads up, because if we're going on a board meeting, so they may want to have discussion with you to get as good understanding as we're getting at this point in time prior to making a vote. I'm in favor with moving forward with it, but I want to just make sure that we're really communicating something like this to everybody.
Okay, I definitely will. If we're going to move forward, I'll definitely forward the email that I sent to the Finance Committee regarding this, and give them a call if anyone has any questions. And anyone even here, if you have any additional questions or you would like to sit down with Chris and I, our door is open.
Okay. So Trustee Steve, you're okay with moving that one forward?
Yes, sir. Let's move forward.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Holmes?
Yeah, I'm a 10-4.
Thank you, sir. Okay, well, we got four out of the 6 here. Any further questions from the board or anything good of the group? Okay, well, hearing none, I think that we're at the bottom, and we're going to go to our favorite part, which is citizens address.
All righty, drum roll, please. All right, for citizens address, we have a few questions. One person asked, how long will it take to implement the system?
Okay, so I guess I can answer that. So if we get board approval at our next regular board meeting, it will take, the owner of the company told me, to completely make the transition. We're looking at an April-May timeframe when we'll be able to completely run off of this software.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how much is the software and the maintenance of the current software, and who will run the software and teach people how to use it correctly?
So the company is actually going to train everyone on the software. They said they're willing to come out, because I told them right now we're paying. When our software company has to come out and do specific things, they said they're willing to come out. In the contract, it has on there so many times a year. They said to get it started initially, they'll come out as many times as we need be to get this done. And what was the other question, Giovanni, regarding that second part?
The second part.
Who will be putting it together?
Yeah, and it said who would be training employees to make sure everyone knows how to use it correctly.
So once again, it will be the owner, the people who actually run this program. They're going to be the ones to do the training. They're going to be training all of us, including myself. And they're going to be the ones, they have people, tech people that are going to come in and work with Derek, who is our IT personnel, Derek Blocker, to make sure that it's a smooth transition and that we get everything done that we need.
Okay. There's another question. It stated, can you please clarify the process for tree branch pickup? My branches have been curbside since October 9th.
Okay. The process, as I understand it, is the branches have to be cut and bundled in 4 feet lengths or less. But what I would suggest is call into Public Works to let them know that you're looking for a pickup, and then they can give direction on what's necessary for them to come out and pick it up.
Okay. Also, there's a question about the new system. It says, this system has nothing to do with meter readings. Is this correct?
Well, it has something to do with meter readings as far as them being input into the system and the maintaining of the readings, but the actual readings are generated from the meter readers going door to door and cards that are being sent in by the residents. That's the extent of the meter readings.
Okay, another question is also in reference to the software. It says, is this possible to help with the codification?
Yes, that will also help with the codification. And the other thing also, so that we can backtrack, let's say sometimes, for example, you see something in the system and it may not look right, or you don't understand it, or why something was put in the system. It actually footprints who entered the information. That's also a game changer for us, because right now when things are in the system and we may have questions, we don't know who entered it in. necessarily. If we have, 5 people working in one department, this system will identify who actually entered the information in, the time, everything. So, so that will help us a lot. And yes, we do have that for the codification.
Okay, the next question is, are there any other cities utilizing this software? And if so, have we reached out for feedback?
Yes, so I did reach out. So I don't really necessarily want to, say what software they were using previously, but Tinley Park, Richton Park, Flossmoor, Glenwood, and Homewood. Reached out to, those are some of the municipalities I can think of off the top of my head that I reached out to and got recommendations for software. And what was mentioned several times was this company. And then I reached out, I asked them who uses this software currently, and got the list of those people. And some of those I named: Oak Forest, Thornton Township, Homewood, or Thornton rather. And most of the people said they were very happy that I was able to get in touch with. And Homewood went into a little more detail about, like I said, what they use the software for. And it's basically the same things that we're using it for: payroll, water billing, HR ledger, accounts payable, and things of that nature. And they were extremely happy with the software.
All right, and that was the final question.
Okay. So I want to just thank everybody on the call for your time. Of course, the trustees, Administrator Scott, Giovanni, as always, for coordinating us, and Chris. With that being said, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion and seconded. So we'll do a roll call. Trustee Brown.
Aye.
Trustee Steve.
Aye.
And Trustee House is aye. We will conclude this meeting at 6:14 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Wow.